Hey, I'm Sheila Hails. My company is called Olivia Hails Designs, which is funny because it's my middle name, so Olivia is my alter ego. And I live in South Houston in the Pearland area, but I'm originally from Northern California, just above Lake Tahoe. So that's me.
What are your likes and dislikes?
I really love food a lot. Like, I really love it. And I really love traveling. That's my dream. Honestly, I've been like praying a lot about it. I'm like, Lord, please let me just be able to travel more and more and more, like for real, because then I can get to try all the different foods that I want to try in the different places. Other likes that I have, I love my family. I love spending time with them. I have 2 little kiddos. And I really love people. I love getting to know them. It's always been something that comes naturally to me to be able to like interact with people because I'm just honestly really intrigued about their story, who they are, like what they grew up doing and everything like that. What else? And then I like designing things.
Of course.
Like obviously. And I really love music. I love music. I feel like that's a lot. Dislikes? Let's see, dislikes. Oh man, I do not like when things like aren't like done efficiently or like I know I'm having to wait for things. It's this, I don't know if you like have ever heard about the Enneagram or anything like that. No, it's really, really interesting and good. But I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, and so the 7 is like the enthusiast. When I get really stressed, I become a 1, which is a perfectionist. And so that's what I'm saying. Whenever I'm like stressed, I'm like if I'm at the airport and one of the restaurants isn't doing something like, you know, like, I feel like, would you want some feedback?
Do you used to work in the service industry?
No, but I'm just like, I feel like I could be really helpful.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So for my business like our business goals, I really want to work on more commercial. I would love, my hope and dream honestly is to be able to design hotels. I love boutique hotels because they're really customized and fun and quirky. And that's been something that I've really been processing over this month. Actually, I've taken off time from doing any projects because I needed to do some like administrative things on my business. But I also just really wanted to take some time to learn and grow. Because I didn't go to school for design. I was a communication major. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Which, you know, is weird. This is totally going off topic, but being a communication major helps me so much with my job. And a lot of times, like towards the end of December, before, you know, the new year, I was like, man, am I even like cut out to do this? Am I even, you know, just those like, what's it called when, like something comes over you and it's like putting you down. I can't remember. Anyway, it's like this whole sort of like theory. Anywho, but that's like, even though I'm not educated in design, it's always been throughout my life and in different ways. Like my mom always moved furniture and I helped her. Like I didn't want to always have to help her, but I did, you know. So my goal though this year, with that being said, of being like, man, I couldn't do this. I'm like, no, like I want to grow. Like I want to work on commercial places where more people will be located, where I will be able to make a bigger impact. Not saying that one person is not, I feel like the one person is the same amount of impact as the other, but the more vision casting. So that's one of my goals. A personal goal is to make a garden.
Oh,
I know! Isn't that funny? Like I hated pulling weights as a kid. I'm like, why do I want to do this? But I really want to grow like my own vegetables. See, food. So I am going into my 3rd year of interior design here in Houston. So it's a crazy thing. Like what I said, I went to school for communication. My goal was to be a speaker and a writer. I've had like speaking and writing kind of like trickled throughout my life. But whenever I was in college, I was on this team. It was like called the Spiritual Life team. And I went to like a private Christian school in college. And we had speakers that would come in, but we were like putting on like events basically for students every single week. And so I always really thought like, how could people tangibly like understand who God is or think about him. And so I was always thinking about like the atmosphere elements, and I love that. Like that was super fun to me. So then fast forward, like we moved to Nashville, and then we lived in Arizona, and now we live here. At each of those places, like the churches that I got involved in, I did events for them. And the one in Arizona is where I really was kind of like, hey, we trust you, we believe in you, and like empower me to, just unleash like my creativity. And I didn't really see myself as being creative. It's funny looking back, just because I played sports and there were no outlets at my school really for art.
Yeah.
So, but that's where I really started. So I started kind of in events, in atmospheric. When I moved here, I was decorating my home for Christmas, and my mother-in-law was like, why don't you see if you would, like anybody would want you to decorate their home? And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So I posted it on Facebook, like in a local moms group, and a lady, she's like, yeah, I want. And the funny thing is like I posted pictures that weren't even mine because I didn't even have pictures of, but this is what I was like, oh my gosh. And I put in the thing, I was like, I want you all to know, like this is not, like I don't have pictures of what I can do, but I can do that.
Yeah.
Because even with the events in Arizona, like I couldn't find those pictures from like so long ago. I finally was able to find them. But I'm like, oh my gosh. But I don't even think she cared. She was like, oh, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Just do it. And then now I'm her client, or she's my client. She's been my client for the past like 3 years. So it's really funny how that happened. So then the next year, or at the end of that year, I guess, I'm like, man, I really want to do this. I really want to do this full time. Like I could see it. I love people. I love creating spaces that allow for people to make memories and have community. And so then again, like I posted on social media, and a friend of mine from church, we were like acquaintance at the time. She's like, oh, would you do our media room? And I'm like, yeah, of course. That's what I want. So then that's how it started. So it's just been like, and then referrals and everything like that. So yeah, most of my clients, well, like I said, I live like in the burbs, the suburbs, right? So like Friendswood, Pearland, Alvin, that area. So a lot of my clients are just clients that are, I don't know how to describe them. Not all of them are like stay at home or anything like that, but like there's a mix of them that just have spaces that are unfinished. So a lot of the style that I've done for people has been pretty like transitional. I have some clients that have been like modern farmhouse and industrial and stuff like that. But it's just for people that, want their homes like finished. And my recent client who was another friend of mine, well, we were again more acquaintance and then have become really good friends, and she's now my assistant. She wanted like her home remodeled and renovated, and so that was my first big renovation project. I had done some little things like in one room, but this was like downstairs, upstairs, like big thing. So it's just taking care of people in the suburbs, I love mid-century modern. I know. I feel like everyone does. I'm like, oh, I'm not original. No. But I love it, and I also love eclectic things. So that's why I love this store, honestly, so much. It's so fabulous because it's very world traveled, and that's what I love. That's who I am. I grew up going to thrift stores and yard sales all the time. And so finding those funky little pieces is huge for me. I just love them. So that's my personal style. I love it. I always go less. But you know what's funny? Okay, so I've been learning, right, through January, and listening to other designers and stuff, and so many designers, or what these people are saying is to always do bigger and always do like, I don't know about more, but like grand. And that really like flipped my mind, because I think it's because for me, I don't love like clutter. and like it's really chaotic when we have clutter. Like we're having a yard sale tomorrow because it's been like so crazy with all the clutter.
So I'll send me that address.
Oh man, it's not gonna be super cute stuff. No, it's gonna be like baby things. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think it depends. But for myself, I'm like, I'm gonna do less, but it has to be intentional. Like I'm still gonna put intentional, purposeful things up there. And if it's less, it doesn't mean it's not gonna be big or substantial.
Does that make you a minimalist?
No. I know, isn't that weird? Like I still want it to feel, like I still want the home to feel lived in.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna put like crap like everywhere, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I have some clients that definitely like things stacked on stacked on stacked on stacked, and I think that's cool. Like I did this half bathroom, which I am in love with, and they went to an antique store that I resourced old things for them for a gallery wall in their house, but they wanted a whole bathroom to be full, like from bottom to floor with pictures and cool stuff. And I love that, but I think there's just like a time and place. But for me personally, having clutter is like a lot, but at the same time, I want it to feel cozy and not sterile.
Yeah.
It's just intentional. It's like this object is like an intentional piece that's going to be placed here.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Are you
No,
sure?
it does make
Okay.
sense. I promise.
Okay,
I promise.
good.
Major projects that you've done that is your absolutely favorite.
So,
Absolute favorite.
yes, the one that I just worked on, it's a renovation, or a remodel. And I just love the project so much because it's a style that I love. So it's definitely like modern European sort of flair and a little bit of like transitional in there. And it makes sense because this client of mine, they've traveled and like her family's from Germany, you know, so it is very cultured. And so being able to do that from beginning to end was just awesome. And I was able to plan out the whole renovation, being like, okay, hey, I want to take this wall down. I want to do this. I want to do this. And she told me, she's like, Sheila, I just want you to know, like, I trust you. And that was huge for me. I think that relationship was such a big deal for me. Knowing that my client trusts me, wasn't like second guessing things on me, because that can make me second guess. And it doesn't mean that I don't want feedback or like, hey, I have this perspective or this idea. But when I get second guessed by a client, it's like really hard. I'm like, okay, well, what am I doing? Do I even know what I'm doing? So that project just came out beautiful. I mean, so serene. It was black and white with like these really pretty light oak floors, and I found this beautiful bed that is handmade in Louisiana, and it's like metal, and it's a modernized version of like an 18th century Victorian bed, and it's just this really cool. It was just such a fun project that I felt like I would totally live in there, but it's totally her at the same time. So relationship, style, and then it was seamless. This is why she's my assistant now, because she's super organized. And so she would just be like, have her whole room of all the orders that came in, and she's like, okay, I checked all the things. And she wasn't my assistant at the time, obviously, she was paying me. But she would go through like everything, make sure it was still good and wasn't broken. She was just amazing.
Now you're paying her.
Yeah, to do all those things. Yeah.
Have you ever purchased from Home Source before?
Yes, I have.
What's your favorite piece?
What's my favorite piece? Okay, so for a client that I did 2 years ago, I purchased this cute little like leather chair. I mean, I don't want to say cute because it's like for him and it's like really, you know, wants to be masculine. But it's so just like, it's weathered, but it's so lush, and oh my goodness, I love it. I'm trying to think of some other things one thing that I love and is super fun was this, I think you guys still have them maybe, are these metal horses that have little stirrups, and then they have this like vase thing at the front. I don't know if it's supposed to be a vase, but I made it like a vase with these flowers going down for this client of mine that loves horses. Those are two things that like pop out. And then recently for that client, I did the renovation. We bought a big credenza buffet, and it was just really cool. But honestly, I love all the pieces. It's just like, yeah. let me think of how to do, oh gosh, I change all the time. This is again going back to the Enneagram, the 7, where like 7s are all about options. So it's never like, oh, I have this one thing. But being able to have like if you're doing a coffee table, putting a tray or book, something that's gonna ground it and then build upon it. So like having a candle on it or like 2 candlesticks, on top of it. I love plants. That's also another little spin for myself, right? is with my own home, I'm like boho mid-century modern. Like I just love, and I'm keeping them alive. So I'm really proud of myself. So being able to like add plants or add some sort of life to any part of the room, if it is a bookshelf or whatnot. I love old books. I love like using them on bookshelves. I take all the covers off of them. Yeah, because they're just like ugly. And well, I mean, they can be really pretty, but they get tattered. And yeah, so I take those off because I love seeing like the old bindings. And then I'll probably put like a plant up there with the books. And then finding things that are fun and interesting that are quirky to me. So like for me, I have this little lion planter that I have. So I'd like put the lion planter up there. And then any other objects that have a lot of like movement. Something that's really popular right now are these like linked chains, and they come in like wood and they're oversized. I mean, it's like grand. So they're like wood or cement or metal. So having something with like an organic movement to add some interest to your eye, because that's what we're always wanting to look at. I think that's why like it's sometimes a hard disconnect when we see things like on social media and it's like, oh, we're just gonna look at these beautiful things, and you see all that movement, but even when you're in person, it's even more intriguing because you can actually like touch, see the texture, and like feel the experience. So whatever I can do in order to style my tables or bookshelves like that with those elements, that's what I'm gonna do. But my number one favorite things, it's so funny, I was listening to the podcast again, Tom Felicia, a designer, he was talking about candles and how he has candles all over the place, and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe it's just like a designer thing, because I love, every time I go to TJ Maxx or any store, I'm like, okay, 20 candles, it's great, it's fine, choose me, yeah.
Yes, girl.
And it's so funny because I just did a client's home and I put a lot of candles, and they were like, I think we need to not have as many candles because we're afraid our children are going to burn the house down. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll just edit some. But I would always do that. Always add a candle, add some life and greenery, add a funky element, and then add books. It's just, yeah, for me, that has pretty much the textures that I want, has the fun atmosphere that I want, and the light and the warmth that I like crave to have. Oh, okay.
Yes.
5 tips and tricks. Okay. Paint. Paint is like so easy to do. Isn't expensive. You can do it yourself, obviously. I mean, hopefully, like it doesn't look like too horrible, but still, you can still like investing in paint is gonna be so nice to be able to like drench the room, change the whole atmosphere in your space, and it will feel new and fresh. I mean, stuff gets like worn down, like, I know going out our back door or whatever, like the dog, the kids, all that stuff gets worn down. So being able to have a fresh new coat of paint is gonna make it feel new, but it's also gonna brighten up the space. Like change it to a different color. Like if you're wanting something a little bit like more moodier, go do like a darker color, like even black. I love black, obviously. Or doing a darker jewel tone color. Or if you're feeling like life is so chaotic, then do like a pastel, like soft color or neutral, just like make it feel a little bit better. Another thing that I love too is wallpaper. So many people, wallpaper is totally coming back. It's fabulous. There's so many more options. But I mean, if you think about it, it makes your home feel so luxurious. It gives a different dimension than you might have had before. And even if you have like a little space, a little niche that you're like, I have no idea. I mean, the homes, that are where I'm at have all these random niches, and you're like, what am I gonna put in there? And people get so stumped. I'm like, why don't you put something that's like fun in there? So like do a fun wallpaper, you know, or and then you can add like maybe a mirror on it, something super simple like that. Changing out textiles is huge. Another place worth your bang for your buck. So changing out your rug, putting in throw pillows that are different for the season or whatever. I mean, literally you can find, if you're on a budget, you know, you can find a good rug for under $200, under $300. You know what I mean? So that's huge. If you can't get a new couch, which not a lot of people can, you can't get a new couch, can't get a new chair, but like I can make the rug look a little bit better. I can get a throw blanket. I can get some pillows that would help it. Two other things that would be good. Let me think. Tips and tricks to make it feel fresh, right?
Yeah,
So
just to spice up the home.
Spice up the home.
Yeah, give it a little seasoning.
Think of what else would be. Those are, I mean, that like really helps a lot, like those three things. So, lighting. If you can replace a chandelier, or even if you're like, I have a client that doesn't really want to do, like I want to mount up some lights on their wall, but she doesn't really want to do the invasion of like having to get, you know, an electrician to come out or whatever. This is a client in Arizona, so I was like, okay, well, let's do plug-in ones that you can still have a cool cord, and those are inexpensive. I mean, you can find them for like $50, $60, you know what I mean? So doing that, changing out like, we call them the boob lights. All of the boob lights, right?
I know what you're talking about.
You know why they're in there is because they're cheap. I mean, you can buy like 2 of them for $50. And so that's why they're just like standard for homes, is to put all those like stinking boob lights in there. So removing those, putting those up, putting up new ones, something that's interesting and gonna catch your eye, that's fun. And then anything else that I would add is go to like an antique store. Go to something that, go find like an interesting piece of art. Something that speaks to you, that is interesting. I think one of the things that we do, even for our personal homes, it's easier for us as designers to design and vision cast for others' homes. But as a designer, for your own home, it's sometimes a little bit more difficult. So I was thinking about this for myself of like, okay, because it does, you do a lot of introspective work. Like it's way more than just the aesthetic. Like this business is emotional and like, I mean, and even for me, like spiritual, like you really figure out who you are and what you like and what you don't like and why you like that, why you don't like that. It could have been like, oh my gosh, I hate boob lights because it reminds me of this old home I used to live in, and I had like a horrible relationship. Or you're like, oh my gosh, I love beautiful paintings of landscapes. I love that because I grew up in like the country where there's ranches and mountains, and so like that's when I want to get. And so figuring those things out is super helpful. So as you kind of do some introspective work, finding something that's going to arouse those positive like emotions within you, or intrigue your mind to be able to look at. So that's something for myself is on my little to-do list, is find something, a landscape picture with some mountains to go on my mantle, because that's then going to influence the rest of your space too. You'll be like, oh my gosh, I really like these colors. Why do I like these colors in this painting? Is it calming to me? Is it energizing to me? And then you're gonna be like, I want that feeling in the rest of my house. And so then you could go to wall color, you could go to rug, you could go to lighting, and then it kind of trickles out. So those are, I think, things that will be pretty cost effective and be able to lift up the mood. I mean, changing lighting, oh my gosh, like those boob lights, just, yeah, it'll change how you see your room, literally, like the light, if you have a really dark room or if your room's too bright, like it'll change it all. So I think those would be some fun things. And get some candles. The scent, girl. It's all about the scent.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you so much for taking
you're
the
so
time
welcome.
to answer my questions.
Yes.
And get to do this with us. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much for reaching out.
Of course.